What if I revealed that certain vegetables refuse to die after just one growing season? While everyone around you continuously replants their gardens each spring, pouring countless dollars into fresh seeds and young plants, there exists a remarkable collection of vegetables that deliver harvests year after year. Much like fruit-bearing trees, these aren't your standard annual crops. They're perennial champions that withstand harsh winters and return more vigorous with each passing season. By this video's conclusion, you'll have complete knowledge of 20 vegetables capable of transforming your garden into a perpetual food production system. Here's the surprising part. The vast majority of gardeners remain completely unaware these options even exist. Hey there, fellow Green Thumb. Welcome back to Green Haven Hacks, where we cultivate intelligently, not laboriously. For those discovering us today, I'm thrilled you've arrived because this video will fundamentally revolutionize your perspective on growing vegetables. And to my dedicated returning audience, you incredible supporters, thank you for being here again. You're contributing to a movement that understands gardening shouldn't empty your bank account or exhaust your resources. Before we explore these amazing perennial vegetables, let me ask a simple favor. If you're genuinely interested in conserving money while developing a garden that essentially maintains itself, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and activate the notification bell. Why should you? Because we release fresh, budget-conscious gardening wisdom every single week. Trust me when I say you'll regret missing our upcoming content. Best of all, it costs absolutely nothing and supports our mission to reach additional people who desperately need these strategies. All right, let's begin this journey. Now, let's examine what's actually occurring here. The majority of us learned that vegetables function as annuals. You place them in soil during spring, they develop throughout summer, you collect your harvest, and then they perish. The following year, you repeat the entire cycle. It resembles being trapped in a never-ending pattern of purchasing supplies from nurseries, conditioning garden beds, and executing identical tasks repeatedly. But what if this whole approach was simply avoidable? Here's the truth nobody shares with you. There's a complete classification of vegetables that function identically to fruit-producing trees. You establish them a single time, and they continue generating food year after year after year. Some persist for 5 years, others for a decade, and certain varieties will outlast your home lawn. These are perennial vegetables, and they're about to become your garden's most valuable asset. I'm not discussing some unusual, difficult-to-locate plants requiring specialized soil imported from Tibetan mountains. I'm discussing vegetables you've likely consumed previously. Vegetables currently available in supermarkets right now. Except nobody informed you that planting them once eliminates the annual replanting madness. So let's dive into these 20 extraordinary perennial vegetables that develop like fruit-bearing trees. Vegetable 1, asparagus. Leading off, we have asparagus, the undisputed heavyweight champion of perennial vegetables. Establish asparagus crowns a single time, and they'll deliver harvests for 20 to 25 years. Yes, that's correct. 2 full decades of fresh asparagus from one planting effort. Here's the consideration. Asparagus demands patience. During the initial year, you harvest nothing. The second year, you barely collect anything. However, by year 3, you're gathering delicious spears each spring for the next 20 years. It's comparable to depositing money into a savings account that rewards you with vegetables. Asparagus thrives in full sunlight and properly drained soil. Plant at once. Exercise patience, and then enjoy literally hundreds of pounds of asparagus throughout its lifespan. Vegetable 2, rhubarb. Following is rhubarb, the perennial that people confuse for fruit when it's genuinely a vegetable. Rhubarb demonstrates ridiculous durability. It endures freezing winter conditions, re-emerges every spring displaying those gorgeous red stalks, and produces for a minimum of 15 to 20 years. You establish one rhubarb crown, and you're prepared for decades of creating pies, preserves, and compost. The optimal aspect? Rhubarb actually requires cold winters for optimal growth. Therefore, if your residence is in a cooler climate where alternative perennials face challenges, rhubarb becomes your ideal companion. Just remember, the foliage is poisonous, but those stalks represent pure treasure. Vegetable 3, artichokes. Now let's discuss artichokes. These magnificent plants resemble something from an enchanted garden, yet they're perennial in warmer regions. In zones 7 and higher, artichokes return year after year, generating those spectacular flower buds that we harvest and consume. Each plant can yield dozens of artichokes per growing season, and they persist for 5 to 7 years. Even if you're located in a colder zone, you can cultivate them as perennials using some winter protection. Artichokes are remarkable, delectable, and they'll make your garden appear absolutely magnificent. Vegetable 4. Sorrel. Sorrel represents one of those vegetables most people haven't encountered, but once you cultivate it, you'll question why it's absent from every garden. This leafy green delivers a tangy, lemony taste that's ideal for salads and soups. Sorrel is virtually indestructible. It develops in partial shade, tolerates inferior soil quality, and returns every single year for approximately 6 years or longer. You plant it once, and you possess fresh salad greens from early spring continuing through autumn, year after year. It's like maintaining a salad bar that never closes down. Vegetable 5. Egyptian walking onions. Here's where things become strange and wonderful. Egyptian walking onions are perennial onions that literally migrate across your garden space. They develop small bulbs at the summit of their stalks. Those bulbs gain weight, the stalk bends downward, and the bulbs plant themselves in fresh locations. It's like your onions are relocating throughout your garden bed. You can harvest both the underground bulbs and the topset bulbs, and they keep multiplying indefinitely. Plant them once, and you'll never purchase onions again. Additionally, they're a conversation piece because they're simply bizarre and fantastic. Vegetable 6. Globe artichokes. Similar to regular artichokes, but worth mentioning independently because of their dependability. Globe artichokes are authentic perennials that establish deep root structures. They're drought-resistant once established, which translates to reduced watering and less labor for you. In Mediterranean climates, these plants become massive, productive fixtures within the garden. One plant can produce up to 30 artichokes during a season, and they'll continue producing for a decade when you maintain them properly. Hey, brief interruption here. If you're discovering this valuable and recognizing you've been wasting money on annual vegetables when you could be growing these perennials, do me a favor. Hit that like button so additional people can discover these money-conserving secrets. And leave a comment informing me which perennial vegetable excites you most. I read every single comment, and I genuinely enjoy hearing from you. All right, let's continue because we've got 14 more perennial vegetables to explore. Vegetable 7. Watercress. Watercress is a perennial that flourishes in moist conditions. If you possess a waterlogged area in your yard where nothing else will develop, watercress will absolutely thrive there. It's packed with nutrients, delivers that peppery bite that makes salads interesting, and develops vigorously once established. The optimal part? You can continuously harvest it, and it keeps regenerating. It's perennial in mild climates and will self-seed in colder regions, meaning it essentially functions as perennial even when technically it isn't. Vegetable 8. Sea kale. Sea kale is one of those vegetables that sounds sophisticated but is actually incredibly easy to cultivate. It's a genuine perennial that produces tender shoots in spring that taste similar to asparagus. Sea kale is also extremely ornamental with its blue-green foliage and white blossoms, so it serves double duty as both nourishment and garden decoration. It's drought-resistant, pest-resistant, and will produce for you for approximately 8 to 10 years. Plant it in a sunny location with good drainage, and you're finished. Vegetable 9. Lovage. Lovage is like celery's overachieving relative. It tastes like celery but grows as a massive perennial herb that returns larger every year. You can utilize the leaves, stems, and seeds for cooking purposes. One plant is typically sufficient for an entire household because it grows so large. Lovage is hardy, requires virtually no maintenance, and lives for decades. Seriously, there are lovage plants existing that are older than most people watching this. Plant it once, and your great-grandchildren might still be harvesting from it. Vegetable 10. Good King Henry. This is an old-fashioned perennial vegetable that's experiencing a revival. Good King Henry produces edible leaves similar to spinach, edible shoots similar to asparagus, and edible flower buds. It's like three vegetables combined in one plant, and it's completely perennial. It tolerates shade better than most vegetables, so if you have a partially shaded location, this is your plant. It's been cultivated in Europe for centuries and deserves considerably more attention than it receives. Vegetable 11. Turkish rocket. Turkish rocket, also called Turkish arugula, is a perennial version of regular arugula. If you adore that peppery arugula flavor but hate replanting it every few weeks, Turkish rocket is your solution. It's a genuine perennial that produces leaves almost year-round in mild climates. In colder regions, it dies back in winter but returns in spring. The leaves are slightly more bitter than annual arugula, but they're perfect for salads, and the plant is essentially indestructible. Vegetable 12. Caucasian spinach. Caucasian spinach is a climbing perennial that produces spinach-like leaves on vigorous vines. You can grow it on a trellis and it'll produce fresh greens from spring through autumn. It's heat-tolerant, which means it keeps producing even when regular spinach would bolt and become bitter. The plant dies back in winter but returns from its roots every spring. It's productive, space-efficient, and completely hassle-free once established. Vegetable 13. Daubenton's kale. Most kale is biennial, but Daubenton's kale is truly perennial. This variety doesn't produce seeds, so all its energy directs into producing leaves. You can harvest from it almost year-round, and it continues for years. The leaves are tender, delicious, and packed with nutrients. Plus, you can propagate it from cuttings, so one plant can transform into an entire kale forest if you desire. It's virtually pest-free and handles cold weather like a champion. Vegetable 14. 9-star perennial broccoli. Yes, perennial broccoli exists, and 9-star is the variety to cultivate. This plant produces multiple small broccoli heads instead of one large head, and it keeps producing for approximately 5 years. The heads are white or cream-colored, tasting like a cross between broccoli and cauliflower. It's slower to establish than annual broccoli, but once it begins, you're harvesting broccoli every year without replanting. That's a game-changer for broccoli enthusiasts. Vegetable 15. Chives. Chives are so common that people forget they're perennial. Plant chives once, and they'll divide and multiply in your garden forever. You receive fresh onion-flavored greens almost year-round, plus beautiful purple flowers that are also edible. Chives are perfect for containers, garden borders, or as companion plants. They require zero maintenance and will literally outlive you if you allow them. Vegetable 16. Garlic chives. Similar to regular chives, but with a garlic flavor instead of onion. Garlic chives produce flat leaves and white flowers, and they're equally perennial and low maintenance as regular chives. The difference? They're heat-tolerant and actually prefer warmer weather. You can harvest the leaves, the flowers, and even the flower buds. They're productive, flavorful, and they'll naturalize in your garden, meaning they'll spread and fill empty spaces independently. Vegetable 17. Horseradish. Horseradish is the perennial that refuses to quit. In fact, the bigger challenge is preventing it from taking over your garden. Plant one horseradish root, and you'll have horseradish forever. The roots are what you harvest for that spicy condiment that clears your sinuses. Horseradish is incredibly vigorous, tolerates poor soil quality, and requires absolutely no care. Just be strategic about where you plant it because once it's established, it's there permanently. Vegetable 18. Jerusalem artichokes. Also called sunchokes, these are perennial tubers that taste nutty and slightly sweet. They grow tall like sunflowers because they're related, and they produce edible tubers underground. Jerusalem artichokes are ridiculously productive. Plant a few tubers, and they'll multiply exponentially. They're also beautiful with bright yellow flowers in late summer. The only warning, they can be invasive, so plant them where you don't mind them spreading or contain them in a designated bed. Vegetable 19. Wild leeks, ramps. If you're into foraging culture, you know ramps are worth their weight in gold. These perennial wild leeks have a devoted following because of their unique flavor profile. Ramps prefer shade and moist soil, making them perfect for woodland gardens. They grow slowly from seed, but establish into permanent colonies that produce every spring. Once you have ramps, You're part of an exclusive club of gardeners who grow one of the most sought-after wild vegetables. Vegetable 20, tree collards. Finally, we have tree collards, and these are absolutely mind-blowing. Tree collards are perennial brassicas that grow into small trees, producing edible leaves year-round in mild climates. They can live for 10 to 20 years, growing up to 12 feet tall. You keep harvesting leaves, and they keep producing more. They don't produce seeds, so you propagate them from cuttings, which means every tree collard is essentially a clone of an ancient plant that's been kept alive through cuttings for potentially hundreds of years. It's like growing a piece of living history that also feeds you forever. So there you have it, 20 vegetables that completely revolutionize the game. Instead of spending money every single year on seeds and seedlings, you invest once and harvest for years, sometimes decades. This is how you construct a truly sustainable, budget-friendly garden that works for you instead of you working for it endlessly. Now here's my challenge to you. Select 3 of these perennial vegetables and commit to planting them this season. Just 3. Observe what happens over the next few years as those plants establish and start producing food without you having to replant them. That's how you transform your garden from an annual expense into a permanent food source. If this video opened your eyes to a completely new approach to gardening, please share it with a friend who's constantly complaining about gardening expenses. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're building a community of intelligent gardeners who refuse to waste money on things they don't need to. And leave a comment below telling me which perennial vegetable excites you most. I genuinely want to know. Until next time, keep growing smart, keep growing affordable, and remember, the best gardens are the ones that take care of themselves. I'll see you in the next video.